Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to Andres and everyone here. I'm delighted to be here. Hungary is the homeland of my grandfather, and so I came on Saturday for the very first time and was able to tour and have goulash for lunch and goulash for dinner and goulash for lunch and goulash for dinner, and I'm very grateful. So thank you very, very much. So I work for Points of Light, which tells ourselves that we are the world's largest organization dedicated to volunteering and service. We have 250 offices across the United States and in 34 countries, working with companies and nonprofits to bring them together to do the work that needs to be done in communities. During that time, I have been lucky enough to run a program called A Billion Plus Change, which is a campaign that encouraged companies to do more pro bono volunteering in the United States and now to begin to have that conversation with companies around the world. And in that initiative in the United States, we have 2,500 companies who have pledged almost $3 billion worth of pro bono service since we began 3.5 years ago. And we've done this in partnership with many of the companies in the room, with KPMG, with GE, with Coca-Cola, who are all part of the Corporate Service Council at Points of Light. So I am delighted to be here, and Morgan Stanley as well, amongst friends. And of course with our great friends at the Taproot Foundation, who have been so instrumental to building and founding in many ways the corporate pro bono movement. And we are delighted to be here with Joel as well. So I ask us just to step back, and I'm going to this morning share a little bit of the sort of background and foundation about what corporate volunteering and pro bono is all about. So I ask you to imagine a world. My CEO starts every speech this way. So imagine a world where civil society has the same expertise as the business community, and where millennials who are hungry for leadership and purpose find it. And business in Hungary thrives. Well, that world has arrived. It's called pro bono volunteering. Because pro bono volunteering and corporate volunteering provides value to everyone involved in the process, to the nonprofit organization, to the employees at both the business and the nonprofit, and to the business bottom line. So service like this is what we call service in the sweet spot. It's the connection of companies, employee interest, and community needs. And EVP equals employee volunteering. We're going to talk about service in the sweet spot. So this is a chart from the Taproot Foundation that helps to make it easier to understand what pro bono is on the spectrum of all the ways that companies and nonprofits work together. There's the financial support that companies give, and it's important. And the actual philanthropic dollars are very important to nonprofits, as well as the matching grants and other sorts of programs that companies give when individuals volunteer. There's also extra hands service, which is the work that we do to paint fences and clean up parts and repair schools. And then we get into the spectrum of those things that are skills-based volunteering, where individuals and companies use their particular talents and expertise to get things done. There's everything from mentoring students who need support in schools, to working with nonprofit boards of directors, to mentoring nonprofit leaders, to providing the actual skills and expertise that a nonprofit would have to buy on the market, but you are providing them for free. So this is the spectrum. The far right there is the pro bono professional expertise that we talk particularly about when we talk about pro bono service. And it comes in many different forms. And as I said, that pro bono service provides triple bottom line value. Value to the community, value to the employee, and value to the business and the brand. So let's talk a little bit about that value to community and what we know. So our US data tells us that the average nonprofit reports less than 10% of its budget goes to the infrastructure that helps it do its job. The IT, the leadership training, the technical support that companies take for granted a little bit. The nonprofit community spends a very little bit of its budget on these types of services. 20% of the budget of companies go to these sorts of services. So there is absolutely a gap. So what we know is pro bono volunteers can really fill that gap. And if you financially value the hour of a pro bono volunteer who's providing you service that you would otherwise have to pay for, the value of that service to the nonprofit can be 500 times more value than if you ask that professional to pick up a paintbrush or a rake and instead of using their skills and talents. So what does it mean for the company? And I think one of the largest impacts that pro bono service has on the company is around human resources. I realize I'm at KPMG with a quote from Deloitte. Deloitte is a big partner of ours, as is KPMG. But this is a brand new survey from the Deloitte Millennial Impact Survey. And Barry Salzberg was an original founder of the Billion Plus Change Initiative. And the point here is that what millennials, and I think KPMG announced last week 80% of its workforce is millennials. What millennials want from the workforce, from work, is beyond product and profit, and really are demanding that their companies engage in communities and solve social problems as well. And so the world is changing for companies. They need to be able to support this millennial desire to give back to communities, to keep those employees happy and engaged in their workforce. Engaged employees are a stronger workforce. So let's look at an example. This is an example from HP. So they did a study in 2012 where they asked how enthusiastic about working at HP are you? And they had a cohort of over, they have hundreds and thousands of employees. They had a cohort that wasn't very happy. On a score of 1 to 10, they ranked their participation 1 to 3. So they took that cohort of employees and they invited them to engage in their corporate engagement and volunteer programs. And this is a global data set for them. And when they did that, when they offered those low morale employees the opportunity to get engaged, let's see, 19% of them didn't, but their morale went up anyways, just in the presence of the opportunity to volunteer. And we find this happens very often in companies. Given the opportunity to volunteer is enough to make people feel better about where they work. Just the beginning. When they did volunteer by picking up that two at once, by picking up that paintbrush, 28% increase in their morale, in their enthusiasm for working for the company. But look what happens when they volunteer at least 8 hours of pro bono service. 37% increase in morale. So it's good for business, right? Happy employees are more productive employees. We also, in a study done with Points of Light and our friends at Deloitte, where we get a lot of pro bono help, we did a study together of Deloitte employees and the companies that make up the Points of Light Corporate Service Council, so 75, now 82 of the Fortune 500. And we looked at leadership value and HR and human resource value to engaging in pro bono service. And we learned that service equals learning equals managerial skills. So when individuals and employees at companies participate in pro bono volunteering, their ability to be better managers increases. 92% for relationship management. So the skills of developing tomorrow's leaders, status reporting, encouraging diversity, asking questions and building understanding, all of those skills essential for good managers in today's businesses. They also learned additional leadership skills. So their level of personal confidence in being able to lead initiatives and work with others, work with many different types of stakeholders, their communication skills, their problem-solving skills, all of these go up when they participate in pro bono volunteering. There are many companies that have taken this idea to be an opportunity to develop leadership skills across the spectrum and to touch their employees' life at every different part of the HR life cycle. So in the beginning, attracting talent and retention. KPMG, PwC, Deloitte offer opportunities for potential employees to engage before they ever come to work for the company, to engage in pro bono service. They use their sustainability, their corporate social responsibility, and their volunteering opportunities as they talk to potential employees about volunteering. They use pro bono service and the opportunity to engage in community as a way to help individuals develop skills and transition to new or growing responsibilities at their company, and we talked about some of those opportunities. They use volunteering and pro bono service to bring people together, to build teams and strengthen relationships inside the organization. And without the pressure of revenue generation, one of the things we learned is that people are more relaxed in their learning environment, and they retain more of what they learn. So over time, they can apply these broad skills to their increasing responsibility at their jobs. And increasingly, we're seeing companies like New York Life, like Alcoa, use volunteering and community service as a way to engage their baby boomer employees, those employees over 50 years old who are beginning to transition out of the workforce, as a great opportunity for them to lend their talent and expertise as they approach retirement. So service can fit in the entire life cycle of companies. And for the nonprofits at the room, I think it provides an interesting opportunity for you to think about how to approach a company with your need for service and the types of employees you may want to look for within a company and ask for as you're designing volunteer opportunities. And some of the other benefits observed by the respondents, safe learning. We talked about this just a little bit, right? Which is without your boss measuring your success, you have the opportunity to learn in a more creative environment. You're more engaged, better effects on the internal culture and on career exploration, the opportunity to look for new job opportunities inside your company by testing them out and working with a nonprofit. So, some ideas about business impact on brand and innovation. I think this is where some of the most interesting aspects of pro bono and skills volunteering are happening. This is the business bottom line of volunteering. This is a study that we did in partnership with the Corporate Executive Board with over 1 million data points. We did an assessment of the actual business value of having your employees volunteer, and this is what we learned, that in the presence of volunteer opportunities, there's an 8 percentage point increase in that employee engagement level, which drives results for the bottom line. So if you use a baseline of 1,000 employees, what that means is that if you have 75% of those employees engaging in a volunteer opportunity, the engagement level for that company goes from 100 to 108. No big deal, you would think, right? But when you think about that for a large workforce of 10,000 or more employees, and the cost for retaining that employee, the cost of having to hire a new employee and recruit a new employee, it translates to a savings of about $374,000. The average revenue that employee who is more engaged creates is about $2,700 more. And so the bottom line by having an employee volunteer program at your company, if you have a company of 10,000 employees, is $2.7 million. Average employee engaged, $2,400 in value to have that employee engaged in volunteering. Bottom line value to the company. So volunteering and pro bono service in specific are absolutely good for business. It's also good for research and development. This is a picture of GSK employees working in a volunteer opportunity in Africa. And what GSK has done has taken their volunteer opportunities and brought it back inside the company in a program called GSK Pulse. And in the GSK Pulse program, volunteers go out and serve in communities, sometimes for a month, at maximum 6 weeks, and then they come back. And they take what they've learned from their volunteer experience into an incubator, an innovative incubator inside the company, where they download what they learned about the culture, about the community, about the needs of that community, about the healthcare needs of that community. And then working with a group of innovators inside GSK, they begin to ask questions like, what does this mean for our business? How do we develop new lines of sight into new markets? How do we better serve the markets where we have done our volunteering with new and innovative products? One idea that came back was that they could increase vaccine rates if they awarded children certificates that they had been vaccinated as a prize that they got for having their shot. They increased vaccine rates by engaging in this. And the need for that sort of award for the child came from a GSK volunteer that came back. More recently, some of these initiatives have helped to develop new transport ideas for how to get vaccine to that last mile location, to the very end of the road where it's often needed most. All of this came through the work of their volunteer programs. So there's many ways that innovation is being served through volunteerism. Companies like Johnson & Johnson are in fact reorganizing so much of their work to focus with the CSR effort in the middle and their business surrounding their CSR effort, using some of the things they've learned from their volunteering and community service to build the next generation of their businesses. And companies are turning their consumers into change makers along with them. We're seeing initiatives like AT&T. This is a no texting, it can wait is the name of the campaign, which is not texting and driving, and not texting and walking is FedEx, so that you're not walking across the street with your mobile and get hit by a FedEx truck, right? So it's good for business. But the AT&T initiative is multifaceted. So they ask, there's a campaign that asks people not to text and drive. There is an app that you can download for your phone from AT&T that prevents you from texting and driving for your teenagers. And then there are community campaigns that you can get in to volunteer in your communities to take this information to your school, all as an AT&T or not AT&T yet consumer. These trends to really making engagement and volunteering and community service are really growing. One of the programs that we run at Points of Light is the Civic 50, which is a ranking, along with Bloomberg, of the 50 most civic-minded companies in America. One of the biggest trends from this year's Civic 50 is what we call this all-in approach to community service, which is companies are using every aspect of their business to build to serve community needs, and in doing so, building the reputation and the quality and the skills and the products of their business, along with, and this is the most important part, really delivering on the value to the nonprofits. So there are some amazing partnerships that can happen when pro bono is involved. The other thing, and I had mentioned this before, is companies seem hungry for company, for others who are willing to serve along with them, from the nonprofit sector, of course, but also from other businesses. We were lucky enough in December to partner with USAID, with GE, with other NGOs, with the Washington's Ebola czar, with IBM, with GSK, with Johnson & Johnson, to bring a group of companies together in Washington to look at what more business could be doing to respond to Ebola. As you know, the world was a little bit slow to respond, and the corporate response was a little slow as people tried to understand what to do. What we did in this initiative was just to raise what are the needs, what are the opportunities. What came of that is a partnership between IBM and GSK for IBM's pro bono iCloud data collection service on what's happening around Ebola transmission rates. In partnership, GSK is working with IBM now to use that information in the iCloud as it delivers the second generation of vaccines to Liberia. So very important ways that companies can work together to really scale and maximize serving nonprofits and communities in times of need. These are just some of the companies that are part of that Billion Plus Change initiative, which is where companies have come together to tell stories like we're telling today about the value of pro bono service, how it's working for their companies, how it's working for the nonprofits in their communities. And I encourage you to think about how something like a Billion Plus Change might work here in Hungary, which is more sharing the stories of success as an example and case studies for what is possible when we all serve together. So I'm happy to take a couple of questions. I'll leave it to Andres to tell me if this is a good time, a couple of questions, and happy to provide more information about our programs as well.
Megadnánk a lehetőséget a csúcsforgalom áldozatainak is, hogy foglalják el a helyeket, mert ott például még van néhány, és kérdéseket is szeretnénk a közönség soraiból látni. Kézfeltevős alapon, hogyha lehet. 2 mikrofon van, úgyhogy majd a mikrofon eljut oda, ahol kérdés lenne. And while we're waiting for that, thank you very much, Jenny. May I also just suggest that Hungarian gastronomy has so much more to offer than just goulash. So if you're feeling really adventurous, why not try bone marrow on toast, for example?
You have to write it down for me.
No, I think that's one that one can remember. Bone marrow on toast. I doubt you've ever had that before.
No, it sounds wonderful.
Don't miss it while you're here. És van is egy kérdésünk.
Hi, Esther Szabó, GE. What was the formula you used for the, when you made the numbers, how much volunteering brings to the table?
In terms of the percentage change?
Yeah.
So I think the U.S. number is, and Joel, you can correct me here, but it's about $17.50 an hour for that hands-on volunteer, and as much as $120 an hour for the pro bono volunteer.
Actually, that's just an average number.
And it's just average, yeah. Yeah, the skill set of the director of research for KPMG or for Deloitte, it bills a lot higher than $120 an hour. Yeah.
Jenny, I wonder for the Hungarian context, if you could tell this group how you figured out that average based on the skills that are contributed, so that in Hungary they could figure out what that number would be here.
Yeah. Yes, Joel? You can tell we work together a lot. So
Just a moment.
Mindenkit megkérnék, hogy azért várja meg a mikrofont, mert különben a tolmácsok nem hallják, hogy mit kellene fordítani.
Hi, good morning. I'm Joel Bishopkin with the Taproot Foundation. Thank you, Jenny, for letting me field that one. And I can speak more about it in my session. We worked with the Committee Encouraging Corporate Philanthropy, CECP, to develop a defensible hourly rate for U.S. professions, and it runs the gamut from $75 an hour to $350 an hour. Those are now 4-year-old numbers.
yeah.
But the methodology is there. We have it on our website. So we recommend that you develop a domestic model based upon that approach.
Yes.
I also have a question, actually. I was very intrigued to hear that companies use pro bono as a recruitment tool and also as a way to advance people's careers. Can you give us a few examples on how that works?
So for recruiting, I'm sorry again, PwC uses it right as people are at the booth in university where they come and talk to PwC about perhaps coming to work there. PwC offers them an opportunity to volunteer with them that week, to talk to nonprofits and communities as a way to sort of test out. Ogilvy PR also uses a pro bono project with their high-level recruits for their best new employees. They bring those 50 potential new employees through a one-day rigorous testing and training day. Part of that day is solving a pro bono problem for a nonprofit. So they use it before that person is even given the letter of hire. And then once there, Fidelity Financial Group uses pro bono as a way to take its middle managers to the next level. They take them through a one-week intensive pro bono project working with the nonprofits to solve business problems, strategy problems, finance problems, auditing problems, and then they keep that individual leader, emerging leader, engaged with that nonprofit for 3 months up to a year as a way to build its programs. Morgan Stanley, one of our sponsors today, has what I think is one of the most interesting programs. They take emerging leaders. You have to have been with Morgan Stanley for 5 years. You have to have an MBA, and you have to be recommended by your manager as someone getting ready to take the next step internally. You're invited to participate in a cohort to do pro bono volunteering for a select group of nonprofits that have been vetted by Morgan Stanley for needing in-depth, intense experience. Those individual employees are then engaged with the nonprofit for, I think, about 3 months worth of time. They come out as a team, work together with the nonprofit, and work together with each other. In the end, they take their results with their nonprofit, package it up, make a PowerPoint presentation, present it to managers and leaders inside Morgan Stanley, to senior managers who vote a winner. And winning those teams is a great feather in the cap for that emerging leader and really puts them on the track for success. So some very interesting ways that companies are using pro bono to test, encourage the innovation of their emerging leaders, which I understand is the new definition of millennial.
És van egy kérdésünk, oda is adom inkább a saját mikrofonomat, az lesz a leggyorsabb.
Hi, I'm Mike Carlson. I'm responsible for corporate responsibility in KPMG Budapest here. I'm sorry I was late, so I missed the beginning of your presentation, but I think what's a message that I'm understanding here is that one of the key to success is institutionalizing the pro bono efforts in a company, whether it's recognition for people who do it formally, which would help advance their careers, etc. And that's it seems to be an important factor because people are always evaluated every day in their job, and you have to have this part of the evaluation criteria so that they can be rewarded for positively contributing. Now we're looking internally now here how where we sell time, we sell hours, we sell advice, etc. So people are evaluated on what kind of revenues they've brought in. And we're looking at how we can create internally call it a fund, notionally fund, that people will get credit for actually delivering a service in a pro bono capacity so that when they get evaluated at the end of the year, it comes into their KPIs and it's part of their evaluation process. So we're hoping that will be another way to encourage people who already are motivated, and this will be another positive aspect to help.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely on the right track. The research from that Civic 50 initiative we've done with Bloomberg shows best practices for those 50 most civically minded companies, and KPMG's on that list. One of those is very much around institutionalizing the service initiatives that people do and putting it on their performance reviews is absolutely a benchmark of the best practices for this type of work.
Thank you, Jenny, for a very insightful presentation.